Using Poseidon CSG to make levels in Unity can be really fun. So I'm gonna just hop in and take a look at this place. Here we've got a little temple we made for a small little game jam. If I hop out into no clip, I can take a look around. We have little rooms with things for the player to explore, areas that are blocked off, things that the player needs to find and discover, and outdoor spaces that the player can go into. And what we're going to do today is take a look at how we built this and using Poseidon, and how we can just add on a couple of other little places for the player to explore and build some more rooms in this area. Before we do that, let's take a quick look at what these meshes look like in the editor, because ultimately we had to build these somehow. Here in our editor, we have a really basic mesh. This is a temple corridor. It's not anything too special. It's just a couple of polygons and some materials on them. We've also put this underscore Poseidon thing that's just named here. This is there to let, when the asset gets imported into Unity, it will automatically turn it into a Poseidon, because if you have this here. Here's also a simple cube. It's got a roof. It's always nice to have an indoor facing cube, also marked as an underscore Poseidon. When we make these, we essentially just make the object that we want and then flip all the polygons so that we're working with all inward facing polygons. This allows us to sort of have indoor spaces that our player can walk around and explore. Now, back into Unity, I have pre-tagged the number of our assets, so let's just look for things that are tagged as Poseidon. And you'll see, let's take a look at the same temple corridor. By itself, it's nothing special. It's just this mesh filter, render, collider, and our Poseidon script. And the Poseidon script holds this base mesh reference. It's a lot easier to configure this if you use the auto importer, but this base mesh reference is what we use to do all of our carving and whatnot. And it automatically generates and outputs a new mesh here into the mesh filter. So let's actually make something using this. If I turn off lights and effects, because those can be a little annoying, I can just drag one of these somewhere into the scene, and let's position it. And you'll notice that based on where I drag it, any polygons that are inside of another Poseidon will automatically be removed. You can think of it as the area that's pulsating here are the removed polygons, and the basin that this is found in has polygons in there that are removed. We carve each mesh by the other mesh. So now the player can essentially come in here. We can duplicate this mesh, drag it out. Let's, I don't know, rotate it. Let's lift it up a little bit. So now you can walk into this space. You can see what you need to see. And let's grab, I don't know, this temple room with skylight that we created. Great. We'll just shove that in right over here and move it about, this is about good. For some reason, the lighting is sort of messed up in this scene, depending on where my camera is, but that's Unity's problem, not ours. Now, you'll notice that when I, as a player, walk into this space, it's automatically pre-carved, and if I don't like where I put these two things, I could sort of move them over a little bit, and now I've dynamically changed where I have holes pre-punched into my scene. So it's really, really easy to make changes in this. Now, the same thing happens if I turn off objects. It will close them, whatever it might be. And if we make changes to the meshes themselves, then Poseidon will automatically recompute those things. So we've also got different places. Like, for example, we have temple vaulted something. Let's push this into place. This is just a collection of 3 separate cubes, and we'll just kind of put them here. And if we line them up correctly and drag them in, you can make like little nooks or impressions. And let's put another one right over here. It's pretty ugly, but yes. Great. I think that's not how these were intended to be used. Oh, that's how they were intended to be used, to make like little spaces that the player can walk around in. Let's just hit play and go explore this probably very not lit area. I'm going to walk into that spot. We haven't rebaked occlusion here, but there we go. We've made a simple room. We've added a couple of little nooks. You can put some hidden items into these places. I haven't rebaked lights or occlusion or anything like that, so there might be some problems here since we're using occlusion culling. But it's pretty easy to add different things. Now let's add some stairs in here. We're gonna rotate these stairs so that they're facing this way, and put them on the ground, and let's say we drag it in right about there. And from the top of that, you can then carve this portion of it with something else. The stairs are a little bit more complicated. There's some static pieces in the stairs, like some vines and additive portions, and then there's the actual carver. That's this portion here. That's the simpler geometry that we use for carving things. And then you can, let's grab, I don't know, a temple cube, shove it over here. Right, let's put it right here and stretch it out. Now you're like, oh no, when you stretch out things, it screws up maybe the UV maps that we have on our mesh. Well, for simple things, we can use our UVs here. So this UV tab on our Poseidon lets us create world space UVs if we need to. By default, it uses the imported UVs, which in this case, because we've stretched and scaled the object, that doesn't really work. So let's just do these walls. We'll just make these world space. And we're like, now these are a little too small. Well, we can scale them up. If we do 2 by 2, it makes them smaller. But if we do something like maybe 0.5 and 0.5, for the sake of this demo, I probably should have figured out what looks good, but something like that. And now we have the brick walls look similar, and we can do the same thing for the material that matches the ground. That might be this one, and we'll do the same thing. We'll do something like 0.3 and 0.3. For some reason, the lighting is a little bit messed up here, but we've now got another space that's sort of dynamically generated. And then it's very easy. You come in, you add another corridor, you let it carve into place. You can make more corridors. Let's go. And let's move this guy over there. And that's it. That's essentially how we can very easily make levels using Poseidon. Let's just go and explore these 2 corridors. Poseidon doesn't affect things that are not part of it. So let's hop into here. You can kind of see this space up here. We made these 2 separate tunnels. We can then, if we wanted to, we can add additive pieces to it, things to just put, let's say, do we have like an arch? There it is, a fancy stone temple arch. Let's scale this down to like 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. And then we'll just make, maybe even smaller, 0.2, 0.2, nope. And you can, just like in Unity, how we normally kind of cover up holes and we do different things, it's easy for us to just take normal Unity things that aren't affected by Poseidon and kind of use them to hide things that are affected by Poseidon. Sometimes we use rocks around edges if things are a little bit rough, but this is obviously for a game jam, and we didn't really create any sort of complicated geometry for this. But using only a couple of small carvers, we were able to sort of create a pretty decent level geometry that's not that complicated. Let's hide this because it's just there for decoration. And there we go. Here's the new space we created, a little room. That the player can come around. We can put some little decorators, vines hanging from the roof, whatever it might be, and they can come up here, put some lights. Very easy to use Poseidon to add new things to your game. And if we click on any one of these, just to kind of show you, or let's go to this temple corridor here, you'll see that it still keeps the base mesh reference. This is what it originally used, and it will use that to constantly recompute what the output needs to be in the mesh filter and the collider. There are a few advanced features. We're not going to go over that in this video. Pretty much, you won't really need these very much, maybe, yeah. And then there's Deferred Mode, which we use pretty much all the time. It's better to be on. If you have complicated things, Deferred Mode basically means that it'll wait until I let go of the mouse to recompute things. If I it off, like this, then it will recompute every single move of the object. But if I have deferred mode on, then it'll wait until I let go of the mouse to figure out how it needs to recompute the objects that have changed. And then if you're doing something really complicated, it might be annoying to have things waiting, so you can turn on this progress bar. But I find that if you're doing small things, it can just be really annoying to have this constantly come on. The other thing that sometimes we've found to be sort of useful is to just turn off Poseidon altogether when you're making a lot of changes, since things can be like, for example, I'm going to be kind of configuring these. So we have a little pause button down here. I click this pause button. Now Poseidon isn't going to compute any of my changes until I let go of that. So let me just move a whole bunch of objects. Now, yeah, let's grab this and this. We'll move these guys here. And really, I know that I'm going to want this tunnel and this guy to be over here. And, let's just rotate them. No, it's fine, like here. And then when I let go and I recompute it, Poseidon will run everything else that's changed that seems to be different from how it used to be. And this can be a very useful thing if you're making a number of changes and adjustments and you don't want to have to keep waiting. The algorithm is pretty fast, but when you're dealing with much more complicated geometry, like here, this is not actually one basin, it's two basins that are carving each other to make sort of a super basin that the player can kind of look up and see other things in. And then some fake other things up here. And doors, they can have carvers. For example, this one here is a stone temple door. It has a carver that carves into the wall that allows you to then connect it to other places. So using Poseidon, it's pretty easy. Just put things in the scene, drag them around, and intersect them.